Hello everyone, I'm Terry Duke, and welcome to my channel. Today we're looking at the state of mods for Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. Specifically, we're looking at total conversion mods. These go far beyond merely changing small aspects of the game like adding new banners or new items. We're talking about porting the entire game either into a different time period or a different world altogether. Given the sheer size of Bannerlord, these are the mods that take the most time and effort to make, but nearly 3 years after the game's official release, not only are there several total conversions to choose from, but one of the most anticipated mods for the game, Shokuho, was released just last week. However, given the scope of this video, I decided to split it in two. This current video will be about every total conversion currently playable, while a second video will be an exclusive look into Shokuho. As of making this video, all mods have been tested on the latest version of Bannerlord, with all the latest version of any other mods required to work, regardless of when they were last updated. So if you see a mod in this video, it should work as of June 2025. Before we get started though, a quick word from the sponsor. This video is brought to you by me, so if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel. And if you're new to modding Bannerlord, feel free to check out my modding guide from last year, as I still use the same methods and they still work fine. Now let's get into it. First off, we have two mods set in Calradia, but during the Gunpowder era, which can be a good way of introducing yourself to gun mechanics, and so we start with Blood and Smoke. Blood and Smoke takes you to Calradia with effectively all the same factions and scenery. The main change is a massive revamping of all troop trees with a primary focus on muskets, grenades, and pikes. So effectively, this mod refocuses all of combat around the pike and shot tactics. As you can see, all archers have muskets, which largely work the same as a crossbow. The reloading animation is also pretty on point. Infantry for virtually all factions are now, by and large, pike units, to reflect the time period. Naturally, they're only really good against cavalry, for anything else, they're mostly fodder. But what's really insane about this mod is the grenades, which are absolutely devastating. In battle, all factions have grenadier units, which blast each other to pieces before the main charge, and it's so ridiculous. Additionally, the mod comes with grenade launchers. They're very slow and inaccurate, but when used optimally, like in a siege, they are seriously overpowered. Other than that, Blood and Smoke is by and large the same as base game, so really, it's Calradia with guns, and for that purpose, it works really well. It's also possible to add some mods on your own to really enhance the experience, and as such, it's pretty solid. Another Gunpowder mod, although this one grabs more of a clear aesthetic, is Napoleonic Warfare. This mod takes place in Calradia, but there are two main changes. For one, the Calradian Empire is united, and for two, most factions take directly from their European counterparts of the Napoleonic era. As such, the Calradian Empire is actually the French Empire, while the Vlandians are the British, Battanians the Prussians, and the Kuzite are the Russians. So what this mod really offers, besides the gun mechanics, which it also nailed, is the uniforms of the time period, and those are simply stunning. However, Napoleonic Warfare wasn't as much a total conversion as an open source template for other people who may want to make mods based on the Napoleonic Wars. As such, the Sturgeons and Asserai in this mod are still native, as is the scenery. And while battles are pretty cool, they're also pretty imbalanced since the cavalry is extremely weak. That said, the mod is still very stable and easy to install, so it might just do the trick. That being said, the core of total conversions is going to be historical mods, simply porting the game into the real world in a specific time period. And starting chronologically, the main Roman mod to get right now is Eagle Rising. Eagle Rising takes you to Europe at the time of the Roman Empire. As such, all items have been changed to fit the era, and whether you're a Roman, a Carthaginian, or a Celt, all armors look amazing. The map itself is massive, covering all of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The three factions of the Calradian Empire have been split over several more factions, each essentially controlling a different country or province under the Empire, although they can still go to war with each other. And given the relatively close time frame, most of the scenes are still from native, but also still perfectly fitting. As it stands, you can absolutely play it without issues, but you can also add your own submods to it. However, there are two main drawbacks currently, at least for some people. The first one is that the mod is currently not self-contained very well. For instance, I am showcasing it as taking place in Europe, but the mod was actually designed to be played in Calradia. If you want it to take place in Europe, you also need to download the Europe submod, as well as the Eagle Rising submod for Europe, and then the mod will take you there. Unfortunately, a lot of total conversions require multiple other mods to work, and that can make the installing process a bit confusing and annoying. And that will be a recurrent issue as we move on to other mods. The second drawback is that the mod also relies heavily on the realistic battle mod, which makes a lot of sense if you ask me, but basically it's a mod that makes battles more realistic and the AI a lot more cautious. The main reason I say it's not for everyone is because it also tends to drastically slow down the pace of battles. So provided you don't mind the realistic battle mod or the extra steps to play the mod in Europe, then Eagle Rising is the Roman mod to get. If you want more of a medieval experience though, we currently have 2 total conversions available, starting with Empires of Europe 1100. This here is a mod I covered a year ago, but it's still in active development. And really, all I can say is, if you want to play Bannerlord but in medieval Europe, look no further. The map is essentially the same from Eagle Rising, but with the historical medieval factions of the time, including the Crusader states, the Turks, among many others. There's a strong focus on historical accuracy, so all rulers and lords are real people from the time period as well. As for scenery, it's largely the same as native still, although some arenas and keeps have been changed, while there are also a few changes here and there. For example, when walking in Rome, you'll see the Colosseum in the background. So really, I can't say anything negative about this mod, however, it comes in 2 different versions. If you take the basic 1100 mod, it will be self-contained, just 1 mod to install, 1 box to tick in the launcher, and that's it. However, what you will notice very quickly is that although the troop tiers for all the factions have been redone, they're all still using the base game items. If you wanted the armors and weapons to be more accurate at the time and place, then you can get Eric's Troops mod. This is considered the official summon for Europe 1100 to make all the items more historical. However, this is where getting the mod to work can get a lot more complicated, especially if you're not used to modding. Because while the base 1100 mod is self-contained, this sub mod is not. It has multiple requirements and the armor mod itself is far heavier, while also having different requirements of its own. So basically, you can play 1100 as the base mod, at which point you'll experience pretty much everything, but for the full immersion, there's a lot more assets that need to be managed and the load order becomes crucial. In my case, I decided to go with all the other optional mods that were recommended in the mod description as well, and the result was very good. I just wish it was all part of the package to begin with. And this takes us to the next mod, Anno Domini 1259 Continued. In practice, the only difference between the 1259 mod and 1100 is the extra 159 years on the timeline. So 1259 offers even more items fitting of its time period, while the factions of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East have also been updated to be historically accurate. But outside of that, they're essentially both medieval mods, and they're both overall solid and very high quality. One of the differences that can be a deal breaker though, is that while 1100 at least offers an option to play the base mod without the extra assets, 1259 does not, so you really do have to get all the required mods in order for 1259 to work. That being said, the mod page clearly shows the load order to apply, and the mod worked perfectly for me on the first try. So all in all, we have 2 medieval mods, and they're both pretty solid. Moving back to the gunpowder era though, we have Empires of Europe 1700. And if that wasn't clear enough, it's basically the same as Europe 1100, but in 1700. So at this point, virtually all armies have been completely revamped to include musket units, and all battles center on the firing line, which works pretty well. In practice, it works the exact same as Blood and Smoke and Napoleonic Warfare, with the main difference now being that you can actually play the mod in Europe. And while 1700 isn't complete, especially when it comes to the scenery, everything else is pretty close. The kingdoms, for one, are all fairly accurate with their troop trees. The main really cool, although still incomplete feature, is that of artillery. Basically the way it works is that some units, such as engineers, can man cannons in battle. If you have the troops, you just have to press K on your keyboard while deploying your troops, and they will spawn the cannons. They're pretty cool and the animation is decent, however as it stands they're mostly just long-range musket balls, as they don't explode, they only hit one NPC at a time, and sometimes they don't even kill in one shot. So yeah, pretty awesome, but they still need more work. I tried a siege and it was basically the same as native, and for the most part it still worked. But all in all, if there is a musket mod to be had, Empires of Europe 1700 is the go-to right now. Still in development, but definitely playable. And that takes us to the fantasy mods, where we start with Realm of Thrones. This mod has been in active development for a couple of years, and it's essentially the Game of Thrones mod for Bannerlord, as it features both continents of Westeros and Essos, as well as all the factions, their respective weapons and armors, and also all of the characters from the story. In addition, the mod has also featured, for a while now, the few non-human species from this universe, including the Ice Zombies, White Walkers, and Giants. Last year when I played it, they had also introduced dragons, which you can access through the cheat inventory, and you can both ride them on the ground or fly, both of which are pretty overpowered. However, one of the ever-constant issues that tend to ruin the immersion of total conversions is the scenery. Like most other mods, Realm of Thrones still uses a lot of native scenery, despite the world map itself being largely done. However, as of the last update in March, we finally have some new scenes such as the Wall, Castle Black, and Winterfell. At Castle Black, the scenery is simply beautiful, and it's pretty much exactly the same as seen in the show. It even has the elevator up to the wall, although it works automatically, so you have to catch it on time. When you do, it's a little glitchy, but it'll take you up there, and it looks great. But I gotta do it, man. Winterfell is just as great. They got the crenellations exactly. They have the Godswood, and even the pool next to it has the steam coming out of it. Seeing how detailed the scenes are, it just makes you realize not only how much work such a mod will take to do all the scenes for all of the castles, but just how much it can elevate the game. And with the wall completed, the last update also introduced new events in the form of the story itself, which begins with the execution of Ned Stark and the factions going to war with each other according to the lore. And based off the mod page, these events include the White Walker invasion and even Aegon's invasion with the Golden Company, which is straight from the book and was completely cut from the show. So really, the only thing missing for Realm of Thrones is all the remaining scenes. But if you can look past that, which you really should, it's an amazing mod for sure. It doesn't just have the entire map with all the new items, you also get to play alongside the main storyline and pick sides. And unlike previous mods mentioned, this one is self-contained and far more stable in spite of my OBS footage being a bit laggy. And that leaves us with the last total conversion for today and my personal favorite, the Old Realms. I won't talk about it too much since I made a complete breakdown of it a few months ago and there haven't been new updates since, so if you want to know more, check out this video. That said, the Old Realms is the total conversion for Warhammer Fantasy, which also makes it the biggest fantasy mod currently available for Bannerlord. Besides being in an entirely new world, the Old Realm brings many new factions, all of them with a variety of new, high-quality weapons and armors. The mod also features guns, which work about as well as you'd expect, but the cannons are currently the best I've seen in any mod, period. There's also a complex magic system, with different types of spells directly tied to the leveling system of the base game, and these range from fire tornadoes, to lightning bolts, to meteorites, turning every battle into pure chaos of epic proportions. And finally, the Old Realms also offers many different careers, that is, different classes to choose from, whether you want to be a Bretonnian Knight, a Necromancer, or an Elven Archer. Each come with perks that work similar to the leveling system, but bring about new tactics, each with their pros and cons. Basically, the title of that video said it all. This is Bannerlord. The amount of time and effort to reach this level of modding is tremendous, but when you do reach it, even if it takes years, it just blows Warband modding out of the water. And while other mods in this video are still limited in some aspects, the Old Realms is fairly stable and fully self-contained, so knock yourself out. And those were the total conversions for this video. As a quick honorable mention though, I'd like to shout out World Empires at War. This isn't strictly a total conversion, but rather a mod that massively revamps the troop trees with whole new weapons and armors, either for Calradia or the Europe world map. But while the armors look pretty awesome, it's probably the least self-contained mod there is. The mod itself is like 2 megabytes, which is suspicious for a total conversion, but clicking on it, you see why. It basically relies on several, much bigger mods. And to be honest, I've had my fill of installing mods like this for this video, and since all it really does is change the items, you wouldn't really get much more from my gameplay footage than you would from just looking at these previews. So that's that. Now, as said earlier, Shokuho, the feudal Japan total conversion for Bannerlord, has been released, but there are other total conversions still in the works that have yet to get a playable version. And the main one that comes to mind right now is Kingdom of Arda, which will be the Lord of the Rings mod for Bannerlord. It's been in the works for several years, and as I understand it, they aim to release it more or less complete, much like Shokuho, so when that happens really depends on the time and resources that the modders have, and it's impossible to know. That said, they did release a video on April 1st showcasing the mod somewhat, and I'll leave a link to it down below. And with that, these are the total conversion mods for Bannerlord in the summer of 2025. Overall, it's undeniable that modding the game is getting better every day, but the truth is, we're still not quite at the point of Warband modding, where total conversions are complete, all self-contained, and work out of the box. Currently, there isn't a single total conversion on Bannerlord that is effectively complete, except maybe Shokuho, but that remains to be seen. And while all the mods are playable and fairly stable to the extent that I did not experience any crashes with any of them, they're not all self-contained, nor are they all optimized. For example, pretty much every mod I played runs fairly smoothly in battles and sieges, but any mod based in Europe results in the map being extremely laggy, no matter how low I turn down the graphics. This in turn has led to long loading times, occasional short freezes, and if the game decides to autosave, that always ends up taking way too long. Unironically though, the most stable of them all is probably the Old Realms, in spite of adding all kinds of crazy things to it. Just expect the first time you launch the mod to take very long, and use the build shaders options in the menu to preload everything, and those will be the only long loading times you will ever experience in the mod. One thing to remember though is that while total conversions are not always self-contained, the way Bannerlord works also makes it very easy to install other sum mods in addition to total conversions. This is what gives Bannerlord even more appeal, because then you can just add any features you want, be it for better kingdom management, or fighting animations, or even a different soundtrack. Europe 1100 in particular has a list of some mods they recommend to add alongside the main modules to make the experience even better, some of which I even covered myself in a previous video. As such, Bannerlord total conversions aren't perfect, but we do have a decent selection now, and they all range in my opinion from pretty good to amazing. But anyway, that's about it for today. Thanks for watching everyone. Remember to subscribe to the channel so as to not miss out the next video, my in-depth review of Shokuho. And again, if you're new to modding, check out the guide. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.